The massive survey ship Celestial Seeker drifted silently through the darkness of space. Its sleek, curved hull reflected the distant starlight as it approached the planet designated XR-27. Commander Trell stood on the observation deck, his four eyes narrowed as he studied the swirling atmosphere of the world below. His scaled skin glistened under the soft blue lights of the command center. "Scan complete, Commander," reported the science officer, her tentacles dancing across the control panel. "Conditions remain unchanged from previous surveys." Trell nodded slowly. "Display the data." A holographic screen materialized before them, showing readings that made several crew members step back in alarm. Radiation levels, 300% above Federation safe limits. Temperature range, -75 degrees Celsius to +65 degrees Celsius in a single-day cycle. Atmosphere, high concentrations of chlorine and sulfur compounds. Gravity, 1.3 times Federation standard. "As expected," Trell said. "Another death world. Log it and prepare to move on." But the science officer didn't move. Her body had gone rigid, a sign of extreme surprise in her species. "Commander," she said quietly, "I'm detecting something unusual." "Explain." "Energy signatures, artificial in nature, and—" She paused, adjusting the controls, "structures on the surface." The command center fell silent. Death worlds like XR-27 were classified as uninhabitable for a reason. No known intelligent species in the Galactic Federation could survive such conditions without massive environmental domes and constant life support. "Could be automated mining equipment left by some corporation," suggested Krell, the security chief. His metallic exoskeleton clicked as he moved closer to the display. "Negative," replied the science officer. "These readings suggest continuous occupation. And the technology. It doesn't match any Federation patterns." Commander Trell's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of deep thought among his people. The Federation had mapped this sector centuries ago. Any spacefaring civilization should have been discovered by now. "Bring us into orbit," he ordered. "Full sensor sweep." As the ship moved closer, more details emerged. The structures were simple but effective, built from local materials that somehow withstood the deadly environment. More puzzling were the open areas that suggested the inhabitants moved freely in conditions that would kill any Federation species in minutes. "I'm detecting approximately 50 life forms," reported the science officer. "Vital, carbon-based, but their biology." She trailed off, her tentacles twisting in confusion. "What about their biology?" Trell pressed. "Sir, they appear to have no environmental protection, none at all. Yet they're surviving. Thriving, even." The security chief made a sound of disbelief. "Impossible. Check your equipment." "I have, 3 times," she replied. "Whatever they are, they're breathing that toxic air and walking under that radiation without protection." Commander Trell paced the deck, considering their options. First contact protocols were clear, but they had never been applied to a situation like this. A species that could survive in conditions deemed universally lethal was unprecedented. "Prepare a landing party," he finally decided. "Full protective gear. Dr. Vex will lead, with Krell providing security." "Sir," Krell objected, "we know nothing about these beings. They could be extremely dangerous." Trell turned to face the crew, his expression solemn. "A species that evolved in such conditions would have to be remarkably resilient. But our mission is to explore and make contact with new civilizations. We will proceed with caution, but we will proceed." As the landing party prepared their shuttle, Commander Trell couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Federation had cataloged thousands of species across the galaxy, but none had ever been found on a death world. Whatever awaited them on the surface of XR-27 would change their understanding of life itself. The landing shuttle cut through XR-27's toxic atmosphere, its metal hull groaning under the strain. Inside, Dr. Vex checked the seals on his environmental suit for the 3rd time. "Remember," he said to the team, "no direct contact. Observe only. Our suits can only withstand these conditions for 4 hours. Krell nodded, his armored hand resting on his weapon. I still think this is a mistake. The shuttle touched down a safe distance from the settlement. As the door opened, they braced themselves, despite their protective gear. The landscape outside was harsh, rocky terrain dotted with strange, twisted vegetation that somehow survived in the toxic soil. The sky above burned an unsettling orange, filled with swirling, poisonous clouds. Move out, ordered Dr. Vex. The team advanced slowly toward the cluster of buildings. The structures were simple but sturdy, built from local stone and metal that had been treated somehow to resist the corrosive atmosphere. Look, whispered one of the scientists, pointing ahead. A figure had emerged from the largest building. It walked with an easy confidence, completely exposed to the environment that the aliens considered deadly. The being was tall, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and pinkish-brown skin. It wore simple clothing but no protective gear whatsoever. Dr. Vex froze, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The figure, clearly the dominant species of this world, was breathing toxic air directly into its lungs. The creature spotted them and raised a hand in a gesture that seemed non-threatening. Then it called out, its voice carrying clearly through their suit speakers. "Hello there. I was wondering when someone would finally stop by." The alien team exchanged shocked glances. Not only was this being surviving in impossible conditions, but it was speaking a language their universal translators recognized. Dr. Vex stepped forward cautiously. "Greetings. I am Dr. Vex of the Galactic Federation Survey Ship Celestial Seeker." The creature smiled, showing flat, white teeth. "Name's James. Welcome to Little Rock Colony. You folks look uncomfortable in those suits. Want to come inside?" Krell tensed, but Dr. Vex signaled him to stay calm. They followed James into the main building, entering through an airlock that seemed designed more for keeping dust out than for environmental protection. Inside, the temperature was comfortable, but sensors showed the same toxic atmosphere as outside. James gestured toward some chairs that had clearly been designed for his species. "Sorry about the lack of proper facilities for visitors," James said. "We don't get many. Actually, you're the first." Dr. Vex struggled to maintain his scientific composure. "You live here, without protection." James laughed. "Well, sure. It's not exactly a garden paradise, but it's livable. The radiation's a bit higher than we'd like, and the storms can get nasty, but nothing we can't handle." "How is this possible?" asked one of the other scientists. "Our scans indicate conditions that should be fatal to organic life." "Guess we're just built different," James shrugged. "Where I come from, Earth, we've got all sorts of environments. Deserts, ice caps, jungles. Our bodies adapted to handle a lot of different conditions." Dr. Vex noticed other humans appearing in doorways, watching curiously. Children among them. Children, developing normally in an environment his own people would consider a death sentence. "How many of you are there?" he asked. 47 in this settlement," James replied. "Been here about 60 years now. Started as a mining operation for some rare elements in those mountains to the north." Krell, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "Your species must be incredibly resilient." James smiled again. "We just call it being human. Now I've answered your questions. Mind if I ask what brings the Galactic Federation to our little corner of nowhere?" Dr. Vex realized they had discovered something revolutionary, a species that redefined what was possible in terms of biological adaptation. Commander Trell needed to know immediately. "We have much to discuss," he said, "with you and with our commander." Commander Trell paced nervously in the meeting room of the Celestial Seeker. The ship's largest conference chamber had been prepared for their unusual guests, though no one knew exactly what accommodations the humans might need. The door slid open, and Dr. Vex entered, followed by James and another human called Tom. The 2 humans walked into the room without environmental suits, breathing the ship's standard atmosphere as easily as they had breathed the toxic air of XR-27. Several crew members instinctively backed away. "Welcome aboard," Commander Trell said, his four eyes blinking rapidly. "We have adjusted our life support to match your planet's gravity, but if you need any other accommodations—" James smiled and shook his head. "This is fine. Actually, your air is much cleaner than what we're used to." Tom nodded in agreement. "Almost too clean. Smells like a hospital." The aliens exchanged confused glances. Dr. Vex stepped forward with a small device in his tentacle. "With your permission, I would like to take some basic biological readings." "Go ahead," James said. The device hummed softly as it scanned the humans. Dr. Vex's eyes widened as he read the results. "Extraordinary," he muttered. "Your cellular structure includes multiple repair mechanisms I've never seen before. And your respiratory system, it's filtering out toxins that would destroy our lungs instantly." Tom chuckled. "We've always been good at adapting. Earth isn't exactly a gentle place either." "Tell us about Earth," Commander Trell said, gesturing for everyone to sit. James leaned back in his chair. "Earth is what you might call a moderate death world. We have everything from burning deserts to frozen wastelands. Our atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, but contains thousands of other compounds depending on where you are." "And how did humans come to settle on XR-27? Asked Trell. "About 60 years ago, a mining company discovered rare minerals there. They needed people who could work in harsh conditions without expensive equipment, so they recruited volunteers from the toughest regions of Earth." Dr. Vex interrupted. "You mean your entire species isn't like you?" Tom laughed. "Some are tougher, some are softer. Depends where you grow up. I'm from the Australian outback, where the sun can kill you in hours and half the wildlife is venomous. James here is from northern Canada, where winter temperatures drop to -40 degrees. And both environments are considered habitable." A science officer asked in disbelief. "Humans live everywhere on Earth," James explained. "Desert, jungle, Arctic, mountains. We build shelters, sure, but we can survive almost anywhere with basic tools and knowledge." Commander Trell brought up a holographic display of XR-27's environmental data. "But these conditions, the radiation alone should cause cellular breakdown. Our cells repair radiation damage pretty efficiently," Tom said with a shrug. "Not perfectly, but good enough. The colony doctor checks us regularly. We'll probably have shorter lifespans here, maybe 70 years instead of 90. But the pay is excellent." The aliens fell silent, trying to process what they were hearing. A species that considered a 20% reduction in lifespan an acceptable trade-off for better pay was beyond their comprehension. "There's something else you should know," James said, leaning forward. "XR-27 isn't the harshest place humans have settled. We have mining colonies on at least 6 other worlds you'd probably classify as death worlds." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Commander Trell raised a hand for silence. "If what you say is true," he said slowly, "it changes everything we know about habitable zones in the galaxy." James nodded. "That's why we've been hoping to make contact with the wider galactic community. There are probably thousands of worlds you've written off that we could help develop." Dr. Vex looked at his readings again. "Commander, these humans could revolutionize how we approach planetary colonization. Or completely disrupt the balance of power," Krell muttered quietly. Tom smiled, revealing those flat white teeth that suddenly seemed more predatory than before. "We're just looking to be good neighbors," he said. "But we do have a lot to offer." The emergency alarm blared throughout the Celestial Seeker, its harsh sound echoing in the corridors. Commander Trell rushed to the bridge, his 4 eyes wide with concern. "Report," he demanded as he entered. The science officer's tentacles moved frantically across the control panel. "Massive solar flare detected from the system's primary star. It will hit XR-27 in approximately 6 hours." "How bad?" Trell asked, leaning over the display. "Catastrophic. Radiation levels will increase by at least 500%. Surface temperatures will rise by 80 degrees. The atmosphere will become even more unstable. James and Tom, who had followed Trell to the bridge, exchanged worried glances. "We need to evacuate the colony," James said firmly. "How many people can your ship carry?" Commander Trell turned to his operations officer, who calculated quickly. "If we empty all cargo bays and use emergency protocols, no more than 20 individuals." "That's not enough," Tom said, his face hardening. "We have 47 people down there, including 8 children." Krell, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "We could make multiple trips." The science officer shook her head. "Negative. Once the flare hits, the electromagnetic disturbance will make landing impossible for at least 72 hours. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Federation protocols were clear. In situations like this, the ship should save as many as possible and retreat to safety. "We're not leaving half our people behind," James said, his voice steady but determined. Commander Trell's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as he considered their options. "Perhaps we could request an emergency evacuation fleet, but the nearest Federation outpost is 3 days away." "We don't need evacuation," Tom said suddenly. "We need to get back down there now." The alien stared at him in disbelief. "Did you not understand?" Krell asked. "The flare will make the planet's surface completely uninhabitable, even by your standards." James shook his head. "Tom's right. We've prepared for this. XR-27 has regular solar flare activity. It's part of why no one else settled there." "You have protection against something like this?" Dr. Vex asked skeptically. "We've built a network of underground shelters," Tom explained, "reinforced with leave and special minerals from the mines. They're designed to withstand radiation spikes and temperature changes." James pointed to the planet on the main display. "The shelters are stocked with food, water, and medical supplies. We can survive down there for months if necessary." Commander Trell looked doubtful. "Our readings indicate this flare is stronger than anything recorded in this system's history. Your shelters may not be adequate." "Maybe not by themselves," James admitted. "But if you could loan us some of your radiation shielding technology to reinforce the main shelter, we have a much better chance." The bridge fell silent again as the aliens considered this request. Federation protocols strictly prohibited sharing technology with newly discovered species. "I cannot authorize that," Trell said finally. "But I can offer to evacuate your most vulnerable members, the children and any who are ill." Tom's face reddened with anger, but James placed a calming hand on his shoulder. "Commander," James said quietly, "I understand your position, but we won't split our colony. Those children have parents who won't leave them. We stay together." Dr. Vex moved closer to Trell. "Commander, these humans have survived conditions we thought impossible. Perhaps their shelters are more capable than we realize." Krell objected immediately. "This is madness. We should force them to evacuate their children at least." "Force," James repeated, his voice suddenly cold. "I wouldn't recommend that approach." Something in his tone made Krell step back involuntarily. Commander Trell studied the humans carefully. Their stubborn determination to face death rather than abandon their people was both foolish and admirable. "I have a third option," he said finally. "We take our ship into low orbit during the flare. We extend our shields to provide additional protection for your main settlement area. We cannot prevent the flare's effects entirely, but we might reduce them enough for your shelters to handle the rest." James and Tom exchanged looks of surprise. "You'd risk your ship?" Tom asked. "And violate about a dozen regulations," Krell muttered. Commander Trell nodded slowly. "Sometimes protection of life must override protocol, but we must act quickly. The flare waits for no one." 3 days after the solar flare, the massive door of the main shelter ground open. Stale air rushed out as James led the first group of colonists back to the surface. Beside him walked Commander Trell, his environmental suit gleaming in the dim light. Sensors show radiation levels have dropped to pre-flare baseline, Trell said, his voice crackling through his helmet speaker. Though that baseline remains lethal to my species. James nodded, squinting as they emerged into the orange daylight. The landscape around them had changed dramatically. Many of the twisted plants were blackened and dead. The metal roofs of several buildings had partially melted. A thick layer of new ash covered everything. Home sweet home, James said with a tired smile. Looks like we have some rebuilding to do. Behind them, more colonists emerged, carrying tools and supplies. Children ran ahead, seemingly unbothered by the harsh conditions. Tom directed a group to begin clearing ash from the solar panels. Dr. Vex approached, his scanner sweeping over the humans. Remarkable. Your radiation exposure was significant, yet your cellular repair mechanisms are already addressing the damage. We adapt, James said simply. Always have. Commander Trell watched the humans work with newfound respect. His ship had sustained damage while shielding the colony, but the Celestial Seeker's crew had emerged unharmed. The humans, however, had endured conditions that his scientists still couldn't fully explain how they'd survived. The Federation Council has requested a full report, Trell said. They are particularly interested in establishing formal contact with your species. James wiped ash from his forehead, leaving a dark streak. Took a near disaster to get their attention, huh? Your existence challenges everything we thought we knew about habitable worlds, Dr. Vex explained. There are thousands of planets we classified as uninhabitable that your kind might settle. Tom joined them, carrying a repair kit, meaning we suddenly have value to your Federation. Trell's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of embarrassment. I cannot deny that your abilities would be tremendously useful, but there is more to it than mere utility. Your species has demonstrated exceptional qualities beyond physical resilience. Like what? James asked. Your refusal to separate during evacuation. Your willingness to risk death rather than abandon your community. These are values the Federation holds dear, even if we sometimes forget them in our protocols. A young human girl ran up to Dr. Vex, staring curiously at his tentacles. Instead of showing fear, she smiled and offered him a small rock she had found. Pretty, she said. Dr. Vex carefully took the rock with one delicate tentacle. Thank you, he said, his translator conveying genuine warmth. James watched the interaction with approval. Kids adapt the fastest. She'll grow up thinking aliens with tentacles are completely normal. Integration will not be simple, Commander Trell cautioned. Some Federation species will fear your abilities. Others may seek to exploit them. Story of human history, Tom said with a shrug. We've dealt with fear and exploitation among our own kind for centuries. As they talked, the colony continued its work, rebuilding with remarkable efficiency. Humans young and old cleared debris, repaired shelters, and replanted specialized crops designed to grow in the toxic soil. We would like to establish a permanent Federation outpost here, Trell said. With your permission. James considered this. And in return, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, trade agreements, and recognition of human sovereignty over this world. We'll need more than that, James replied. We want access to Federation star charts, information about other death worlds you've discovered. Dr. Vex chittered in surprise. You wish to expand to even more hostile environments. It's what we do, Tom said with a grin. We push boundaries. We survive. We thrive. Commander Trell watched a group of humans lifting a heavy metal beam to repair a damaged building. They worked together seamlessly, adapting to challenges with creativity and determination. I believe, Trell said slowly, that the galaxy is about to change in ways none of us could have imagined. James looked up at the toxic orange sky. Change is the only constant, Commander. Those who can't adapt don't survive, Trell finished. A lesson my people would do well to learn from yours. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Federation fell silent as James stepped onto the speaking platform. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds watched from their designated areas. some floating in special liquid environments, others sitting in custom atmospheric bubbles, and many more in forms James could barely comprehend. He stood alone, the only human in the massive hall, wearing his simple mining colony clothes. He had refused the ceremonial robes offered to him. "Distinguished delegates," he began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "I stand before you as a representative of Earth and its colonies. Until recently, you didn't know we existed. Now, I'm told my presence here has caused quite a stir." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A tall, slender alien with shimmering blue skin rose from the central council table. "High Counselor Jean," she introduced herself. "We have reviewed Commander Trull's reports about your species' remarkable resilience. Many find these claims difficult to believe." James nodded. "I understand your skepticism. That's why I came without any protective gear. Your chamber's environment would kill most of your members without their special accommodations, yet I stand here breathing your air, feeling only mild discomfort." This caused another wave of murmurs. A bulky, armored delegate rose from the military section. "General Drack of the Defense Coalition," he rumbled. "If what Commander Trull reports is true, your species could potentially colonize worlds no other species can inhabit. This creates significant security concerns." James sighed. He had expected this reaction. "General, humans have lived on Earth for thousands of years without developing the technology to reach other stars on our own. We found XR-27 by accident when one of our ships was damaged and forced to land there. We're miners and farmers, not conquerors. Yet now you seek our star charts," another delegate called out. "You specifically request information about death worlds." "Worlds you can't use," James countered. "Planets sitting empty that could support human life, provide resources, and expand trade opportunities for everyone." High Counselor Jean raised her hand for silence. "There is another concern, Representative James. Your biology. Some council members fear that humans might carry unknown pathogens dangerous to Federation species." Tom, who had been waiting in the antechamber, chose this moment to enter. He walked confidently to stand beside James. "I'm Tom, the colony's doctor," he announced. "We've already submitted to extensive medical scanning by Federation scientists. Yes, our biology is different, but we've taken every precaution to ensure we pose no biological threat." General Drack wasn't satisfied. "Your kind survived radiation levels that would kill my soldiers instantly. You breathe toxic air. You endure temperature extremes. These are traits of a perfect biological weapon." James felt his patience wearing thin. Or perfect miners, perfect explorers, perfect emergency rescue workers for disasters on worlds too dangerous for your people to help. This caught the attention of many delegates. A small, insect-like being rose from the humanitarian section. "The representative raises a valid point." It clicked through its translator. "During the Proxima disaster, we lost 20 relief workers to atmospheric toxicity. Could humans have survived those conditions?" "Most likely," Tom replied. "We've reviewed the data. Those conditions were harsh but within our tolerance range, especially with minimal protective gear." The chamber erupted in excited discussion. James watched as delegates conferred with each other, some clearly alarmed, others intrigued. Commander Trull, sitting in the observer section, gave James an encouraging nod. High Counselor Jean finally restored order. "It seems we have much to consider. A species with your capabilities presents both opportunities and challenges for the Federation." James stepped forward again. "We don't ask for charity or special treatment. We offer partnership. There are places in this galaxy no one else can go. We can go there, live there, work there. What we discover, what we build, what we learn, we're willing to share." "And in return," asked Zahn, "recognition, protection, knowledge. The same things any new species seeks when joining the galactic community." General Drack huffed skeptically. "You speak of joining, yet your kind clearly doesn't need the same protections other species require." James looked directly at the general. "Everyone needs allies, General." History has taught humans that lesson many times. The chamber fell silent again, the delegates contemplating his words. "We will deliberate," John announced finally. "But I believe this may be the beginning of a most unusual partnership." The massive exploration vessel Unity drifted into orbit around planet KL-104, its sleek hull bearing both Federation markings and the newly designed Earth emblem. 6 months had passed since the historic vote that welcomed humans into the Galactic Federation as associate members. On the bridge, Maria stood beside Commander Trell, both gazing at the swirling storms visible on the planet below. KL-104 had been classified as uninhabitable for centuries. Constant lightning storms, highly corrosive rain, and atmospheric pressure twice that of Earth's. "It's beautiful," Maria said, her eyes reflecting the violent purple clouds. "Reminds me of storm season back in Oklahoma." Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You find destruction beautiful." "Not destruction. Power. Energy. Potential." Maria tapped the view screen. "Those storms are just energy waiting to be harnessed." The science officer, Dr. Vex, joined them with the latest readings. "Preliminary scans confirm our earlier data. The planet's surface contains the largest deposits of quantum crystals ever recorded, which no one could mine because no one could survive down there," Maria added with a smile. "Until now." The expedition was groundbreaking in many ways. Half the crew were humans, selected for their experience in extreme environments. The other half were Federation specialists, mostly scientists and engineers eager to work with the remarkable newcomers. "Landing team, prepare for descent," Trell announced over the ship's communication system. In the shuttle bay, Tom supervised as humans and aliens checked their equipment. The humans wore lightweight protective suits, not the full environmental armor the Federation species required, but reinforced clothing designed to resist the worst of the acidic rain. "Remember," Tom instructed the team, "stick to the protocols we developed. This isn't about proving how tough humans are. It's about working together effectively." The alien scientists watched with a mixture of awe and concern as the humans casually handled equipment that would be deadly to most Federation species. A young Federation engineer approached Maria as she boarded the lead shuttle. "I still don't understand how you can remain so calm," he said. "Our simulations show that even with your biology, this environment is extremely dangerous." Maria secured her helmet. "Danger's been a part of human life since we first climbed down from the trees. We don't ignore it. We respect it. Then we deal with it." The descent to KL-104's surface was turbulent. Lightning flashed around the shuttles, and winds threatened to throw them off course. When they finally landed in a relatively sheltered valley, the aliens waited nervously as Maria stepped out first to test the conditions. She stood in the howling wind, acidic rain sizzling slightly where it hit her suit. Through her faceplate, she grinned and gave a thumbs-up signal. "Conditions as expected," she called back. "Bring the equipment." Over the next few hours, the mixed team established the first outpost on KL-104. Federation technology provided advanced scientific tools and communications, while human ingenuity found ways to adapt to the harsh reality of the planet's surface. By nightfall, a relative term on a world where darkness just meant the storms turned from purple to deep blue, they had assembled a basic shelter and begun preliminary mining tests. In the command center of their outpost, Trell recorded his official log. "Day 1 on KL-104 has exceeded expectations. The Human Federation cooperation model shows promising results. What my kind considered impossible just months ago is now becoming routine." Maria joined him, removing her helmet and shaking out her hair. "You know what this means, don't you? There are thousands more worlds like this one. Planets with resources, scientific value, and potential that's been ignored because they were labeled death worlds. The Federation Mapping Division is already re-examining old surveys," Trell confirmed. "We may need to create an entirely new planetary classification system." Outside the shelter window, 2 humans and an alien scientist were collecting storm water samples, working together despite the howling winds. "That's the real breakthrough," Maria said, nodding toward the team. "Not just that we can survive here, but that we're learning from each other. Your technology, our adaptability." Trell's inner eyelids flickered thoughtfully. "In all our years of exploration, we sought worlds that could accommodate our needs. You taught us to adapt ourselves to the world instead." Maria smiled as lightning illuminated the alien landscape. "To survive anywhere, you must become part of anywhere. That's the human way." "Perhaps," Trell said, "it will become the Federation way as well."